Look deeper into what you think you see. Feel for what you think you hear. Break free from the chains of an illusion. The Realist Juggernaut. There's a powerful force in realism. The Realist Juggernaut.
Hello, my name is Neff, and I'm an audio engineer and producer from Niagara Falls, New York, currently residing in Buffalo, New York. I took an interest in creating a segment on the Realist Juggernaut where I teach people how to achieve professional results from the comfort of your own home. Grab a drink and bring your best pair of listening ears as you're about to listen to Audio Talks with Neff. Hello. My name is Neff. I am the founder and creator of Neff Audio Productions out in Buffalo, New York, from Niagara Falls originally, but right now we're here at Shutter Track Studios. The cameraman Vince, who is also my drummer in the band Star Theory, are going to be just doing a little quick overview of how we personally mic drums for recording purposes. It should be a little complicated and a little frustrating, but it's worth it in the end when you don't have to sample or replace anything. So, otherwise, let's get to it. So, for first and foremost, what I like to personally do is I like to use clip-ons, mic clip-ons for the rims. If you want to get closer and show them this. I like to use mic clip-ons. These are some fairly inexpensive mics from the brand CAD, and these clip-ons will just attach to the rim like so. You kind of want to have it pointed towards the center of each head, so when I am done here and I'm about to plug in all the cables, I will then recheck everything to make sure that everything is exactly where it needs to be. In order to do this, what you're going to need is as many mics as possible. But in all seriousness, just to get a base level recording, you'll probably just want something like an SM57 for your snare. And if you have the budget and you only have like 3 or 4 toms, you can use SM57s on the toms as well. Personally, I had to borrow some mics from a friend, so that way I can capture the toms. But other than that, though, you have the options to kind of source other microphones and figure out what works best for you. However, for here in this particular room, because room does matter, it's really nice to use an overhead condenser microphone mixed with some dynamic microphones. And on the kick, if Vince would be so kind to show you, we have the Shure Beta 52A on the kick. That is going to be pointed towards the beaters of the actual kick drum on the beater side, just so that way we can get some nice click in there, as well as the punch and the oomph that you want from the low end in a kick. Over here we do have Lewitt LCT 040s. These are small condenser microphones, and they're pretty nice. They're about $199 in the US anyway. They're very inexpensive, they sound good, and they do the trick just fine. Same thing over here, another LCT 040. These are a matched pair, so they are matched at the studio frequency spectrum wise, as well as SPL levels and everything like that. So you know that each microphone is going to perform the exact same as the other one, so when you have them in stereo configuration and everything, you know that there's going to be no frequencies that are different than the other one in each take. So then for the hi-hat over here, we have a Rode M5. This also belongs to a match pair set. However, we're just going to use one, and we're going to place it on the hi-hat here, because that's what we want to do. We want to capture the hi-hat, but more on that later. So for all intents and purposes, for this particular setup, we have 3 toms, a snare, we have a kick, we have cymbals obviously, And what we're going to do is we are going to make sure that the overheads are central to the snare drum. So that way when you capture the image, the snare is completely in the center, and when you go to pan left and right, you're still going to have the snare in the center. It's going to be a little bit frustrating. That's where the frustration gets in, but otherwise pretty simple. I already kind of briefly touched on the kick, the Shure Beta 52A. Like I said, it's going to be facing towards, once you put it inside the porthole, it's going to be facing towards the beaters on the actual beater side of the kick drum. And that's going to capture as much of that clicky essence as possible through the actual boominess and the subbiness of a kick drum. And then over here, kind of briefly explained, with the toms, you want to point them as towards the middle as possible on the skin, so that way you get a nice even response. If you do this, you're not going to pick up any of the clack from the sticks. You're just going to pick up the resonation on the head, and that leads for not a great sounding recording. So making sure you have that is, well, kind of penultimate in that situation. So when it comes to overheads and getting that stereo image, I kind of try to keep the snare mic placements a little bit cognizant. I like to be a little cognizant when I'm putting those in there. If Vince would be so kind to kind of look down at the snare really quick, you could see that we have it playable for the player, and it's not too in the way, so that way he can still do what he's doing, but we also want to be mindful that it's not hitting any of the toms or anything like that. And then we also have a bottom mic here, which is another one of the same ones that are on the toms, just to capture the snare wire and bring some brightness to the top of the snare. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to show you the painful part of all this. All right, guys, so this is going to be a little bit of magic, but it's already set up now. And the reason why we did that is so that way you guys didn't have any filler or anything like that. Basically, you know, we tried to make it as easy for you guys to understand as possible while seeing the final product. So if we come over to the drum shells, which are the most important, again, we have that Shure Beta 52A on that kick drum. Again, the actual mic, like a flashlight is how you're going to point it, is pointed towards the beater in order to collect most of that clicking noise, so that way your kick has some top end presence. And then moving to the toms over here, again, just some microphones that are clipped on, and the microphone is aimed straight at the center while looking down the top or the sides, either one. So those are like that. There's one underneath the ride here, just to kind of capture that floor tom, and not kind of, it is going to capture that floor tom. But anyway, as you can see here, we have the snare. I tricked you. Anyway, now we got the snare over here. We have the Shure SM57 on the top to capture a lot of the body and to give us some of that whip, that nice little smack. And then underneath it, we have another microphone to capture the brilliance of the snare wires to kind of help balance out the body of the actual snare top mic. It works really, really well, and it's just chef's kiss. But anyway, if we move up to the overheads, this time is for real. You'll see that we have the Lewitt LCT 040 matched pair on these overheads, and the overheads are looking at each part of the kit. Now you can ideally use it in multiple different ways. This is where trial and error actually comes into play. A lot of the times, you know, you might want to capture with the snare in the middle of your overheads, while you at other times might just want to capture the cymbals or one part of the kit. In this particular production, we have a hi-hat microphone on the actual hi-hat, so we didn't really need to capture the hi-hat, so we just kind of broke it out into as evenly as possible. And with a little bit of geometry, we got that to work out pretty well. It's about 56.25 inches away from the source, which is great because when you have a small diaphragm condenser microphone, it works like a flashlight. So the farther away the actual source that you're trying to capture, the more it's going to capture. So like if you're like really close to it, it's only going to capture it like right there, but the more you go down and the further you are away from it, it'll open up like a cone and you'll be able to capture more of it. So with this being the way it is, I wanted to capture this area, and on that side I wanted to capture as much as I could over here, but mostly just wanted to really focus, because I have that hi-hat microphone, to really focus on these three elements: the snare, the tom for the first rack tom, and that crash. Realistically, when we come over to the Rode M5 over here, which is what we have on the actual hi-hat, what we did was we put the we basically put it as close as possible to the actual sizzle point of the hi-hat, which is the edge. It must have moved, but overall that's going to capture the sizzle from the actual hi-hats every single time your drummer does make that initial hit. So yeah, basically with that being said, you're going to need one of these bad boys if you want to make sure that everything is in phase. When it comes to the overhead microphones, basically you kind of want to use geometry to your advantage. You really just need to use this to kind of determine what source it's looking at and how far it is away from that particular source, and then use that source as a reference point to how far away it is. So we have about 55 5/8 inches over here, and then from over here we have roughly 55 5/8. So it's right on where we need it to be, which means that they are equal distance away from one another. We typically try to keep them at least 3 feet apart this way, and if you have the room, that is. But again, it comes down to trial and error. You might find things work better for you and other things not so much. However, this is a good starting point, making sure you buy one of these tape measures and utilize that. Even just a piece of string with some marker to mark where you are is going to come much in handy whenever you are trying to place your overhead microphones. You really don't want to have to sit there for hours in order to phase align everything to make sure that everything is as thick and as fat as possible, because phase issues do run rampant if your overheads are off kilter at all. That's why they make auto-align plugins and stuff like that to fix those phase aligning issues. Anywho though, I'm hoping you enjoyed this video. If you did, great, follow along for the journey and let me help you learn.